Welcome to the Future Pod
with Björn and August.
and Alex.
Hey!
Because we are recording in English today. We have an English-speaking guest. Alex is my brother-in-law, and this is actually his second time on our podcast. He appeared once before on the unreleased and much sought after Alex special, where we spent a couple of hours discussing everything from aliens to ancient civilizations and teaching techniques before discovering that I think one or two of our microphones weren't working. But it was a nice evening either way, I think.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. I enjoyed it. And it's nice being in a room with the both of you because, I'm sure your listeners will know that both of you are very well educated. When I come from the other side of the cloth, I'm from I come from a very creative background. So my job is I'm a dance teacher, and I've spent most of my life within the creative field. And even though science and technology and UFOs and science fiction has always been an interest and a hobby of mine, I'm basically like an outsider looking in. So when I'm able to talk to you guys about it, you are more down to earth and sensible, I suppose, than I am. Yeah. So I enjoy talking about this stuff to try to get you to be as open-minded as I can.
I think there's no need to be humble. There's a bunch of things you've told me that, I maybe didn't believe the first time and then turned out years later to be absolutely true. I think you have your ear on a lot of channels where these things come about. So specifically, I'm thinking about the Green Sahara hypothesis, and also the idea that the rainforest in the Amazon was pretty densely inhabited.
Oh yeah. There's been so especially now in the modern day where we have this technology called LiDAR, which is like a ground penetrating kind of scan that you can look through all of the shrubbery and the trees, and you can see kind of what's underground, if there's any structures. And what kind of got me, and what's really nice is, again, as a kind of someone who I find this stuff very entertaining, these stories of, say, ancient civilizations or in the Amazon, that it was once a very prosperous, city where there'd be millions of people living there. And what's kind of interesting is there's been this human story to this for many, many years. This isn't new, but because of modern day, the way we are in the modern world, we like to kind of put ourselves up on a pedestal that we think, we are the best that we've ever been. It's hard to believe that, a tribe 10,000 years ago somehow had it better than we have it now. So to be able to say that, there was once a prosperous city that lived in the Amazon, and people would just laugh that off, mainly because of their own stubbornness and the thought of them being right. Now in today's society, with things like LiDAR, with the scanning, we're able to actually prove, no, there were cities and there are these big structures, which is then rewriting our whole history.
How do we know that they were prosperous, or that it was a big...
Or that they were happy.
So when I say like the human touch is there famously, and I can't remember, but there was a Spanish explorer who went to the Amazon, I believe.
Is he the one in the movie? There's a film made about this crazy guy who went into the 20s. He went into the Amazon to find a hidden city.
Yes, but I think he went because of this other guy.
Okay.
So there was a guy, I believe, in the 16th century who was in Spain, and I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he was an explorer, and he went and he talked about the city of gold, that he would go into the Amazon, and there were these millions of people there, and they had these huge structures and pyramids and all this gold. That's what he called it, city of gold. And then when he went back to Spain and told everyone about it, no one believed him. And then when they turned up some 200 years later in the Amazon, most of those people had died. And the theory is because he brought along kind of a smallpox or some kind of disease with him that just wiped them all out. And obviously over the time of 200 years, then the Amazon just regrew again and nobody,
But surely there might have been a bit of marketing there, like a Greenland kind of thing, where he's trying to get people to go along on this expedition and hoping there's gold, so he has to oversell it.
And this is exactly what I was talking about. That so yes, you're right. It could have been a trick. It could have been a scam. But the fact that now we're finding with scanning the Amazon rainforest, with the small percentage that we have done, we're now finding these structures to actually prove our history wrong. Then you have to rethink, okay, was he right? I'm not saying he is, but if he was right, this stuff that we're now finding of this civilization that's been able to build these structures and to have roads and to have they talk about the Amazon as it not being a natural rainforest anyway, that it was actually agriculture.
This is surely an exaggeration. So to be clear, I think the thing they've found so far with the lidars are cities, I think up to possibly in the tens of thousands of inhabitants, with canal systems and clear signs of horticulture being done, so growing fruits and vegetables and stuff like that.
Yeah, but my question to you would be, and to both of you, because we're going to have this conversation, we're going to go down many different paths. So today, I don't think my job, and for all your listeners as well, is to necessarily convince you. I'm not going to convince you. You're not going to be able to leave this thinking, oh, aliens are real, ancient civilizations, this is all correct. But I think what I want to try to do, at least, is to get you interested enough to do your own research. As men of science, I think is very important that if I say something like, oh, okay, yeah, they found this or they found that, please don't take my word for it. I want you to go and look out, and I want you to go look at these things and read these things and think, oh, this is quite interesting. Because for me as a complete novice, I'm not going to remember every scientist's name. I'm not going to remember every detail, but I'm going to be able to tell you at least what I know to be true.
But I think this is also why this is a good story to start with, because for me at least, it's this one of your crazy stories that actually turned out, irrefutably to be true. Even though I'm not sure I'm buying the whole, El Dorado paradise, happy people in mountains of gold story, but there were certainly cities in the Amazon, which is really surprising, and that have only been found in the last few years. And that's, some people who were considered cooks have for hundreds of years claimed we're there.
Yeah, and the reason why I said earlier about the Amazon actually being man-made and not being natural is because of the type of soil that they've discovered. Do you know about this kind of really dark terra soil? I can't remember I think it's terra something, but it's this really black soil that's very it's full of nutrients, and you can grow pretty much anything from it. This is not a natural soil, and they found this throughout pretty much most of the Amazon that they've excavated, that when you dig down deep enough, you get to this kind of layer of soil that is basically that's been produced, that have been through by burning. Tell you what, you're the one with the laptop. You're welcome to look it up. Look at terra soil in the Amazon, and how that it's one of the things to go to to try to prove that actually the Amazon may not be natural. And I'm not saying it is or it isn't, but I'm saying that when you see that there's this rich soil that appears nowhere else in the world, and you only get this soil from burning certain carbons and things like that in order to try to make the ground as fertile as possible. And that's how you then, if you had a ground that was really fertile, then you would be able to support, say, a civilization of up to 1 million people. Because you'd be able to feed.
I think we'll just have to take your claims tonight at face value and do the Googling later.
Well, I'll tell you the name. As I have my phone here and you guys talking, I will look at this name. It's called Terra something off the top of my head. I'm going to write Amazon soil. And because this time I don't really have any Terra Preta. There you go. It's called Terra Preta. Terra Preta, also known as Amazonian dark earth, is a type of very dark, fertile soil that's found throughout the Amazon that is man-made.
So, just so I'm understanding this right, these cities, are they from what time are they believed to originate, or how old are they?
And this is what's up for debate. That I mean, I can't tell you exactly. Oh, this is from 10,000 years ago, or this is from 1,000 years ago. But from carbon dating, and I know that there are these very interesting shows. There's one on Netflix with his name's Graham Hancock, who sure maybe some of you have heard of him. He's good because he goes against what a lot of modern archaeology has been saying, which we can get into a bit why. But when he goes into the Amazon and tries to carbon date certain things, I know that they found structures that are tens of thousands of years old.
I think the mainstream consensus is that they're, probably from somewhere between the Olmec and the Maya periods, or like, so 500 to 1500 CE, I think.
Yeah.
So, but this is, in this case, I don't have any more information than what I think I've heard. And Graham Hancock is surely more knowledgeable than me.
I think like what's interesting with what Graham Hancock does, and I know that he went to South America and he looked at the Amazon, and he obviously looked at other places. And there was one place that he found these huge megalith kind of stones, where I believe it could have been in Chile, and these huge blocks that weigh 100 tons each, and how precise they are stacked to each other. And in the area that he was, they were originally told that, oh, this was by this group of people. Okay, so say like the Olmecs or someone like that. When you look at, so let's say the Olmecs, for example, when you look at their building style and what kind of materials they used, it's nothing like what this huge 100-ton stone blocks that have been quarried from thousands of miles away, like what it is done in Egypt. And the thing that I find interesting is how there are many similarities, whether you're in Egypt or whether you're in Chile or whether you're in Peru, and how from a novice's point of view, you can look and see similarities in the building styles, but what is kind of believed in modern day is the Olmecs would have, say, turned up and maybe they discovered them and they would have built on top of it or tried to put their name on it. It's like in Egypt that you can have a tomb and someone can carve their name into it and think, oh, that's blah, blah, blah's tomb, but that doesn't mean that they built it. Do you see what I mean? So the whole point is trying to look a little bit deeper and to think, okay, what do we know about this civilization in their time? What was their building style like? Which kind of tools did they have? What were they capable of? And then when you see something that's so out of the blue, like if you go to Anglo-Saxons in England and you look at all these like straw huts and these wooden things, and then suddenly you see Stonehenge. There's nowhere else in England that has like a Stonehenge. And you'd kind of then wonder, like, well,
there are many megaliths in England.
Oh yeah, yes, but then you'd wonder, but did they build it, or just because it was around that time, or did they come across it? And
So-
that's the whole point. And I don't know the answer to it, but it's an interesting thought.
Since we're talking about things of which we rely heavily on you know, secondhand information here, to be the defender of orthodoxy, and as someone who, you know, has dabbled perhaps slightly more in archaeology than the average person, and maybe our listeners haven't, Graham Hancock is this. Maybe a renegade is a good description.
He's known for.
So he goes against like most people in the like sober mainstream archaeology would probably call him a cook.
Yeah.
But he's known for theories on ancient civilizations predating everything we know. You know, agriculture for 20,000 years and stuff like that. And I think he has like a Netflix documentary and stuff, right? He's quite
does.
big in popular science.
He does. And what he makes out, the case that he kind of puts against modern archaeology, which is really interesting to me, is how there are many people who in power, say in archaeology, that keep a grip on certain things, that won't let certain stuff come to light. Because if you're someone who you believe in a certain theory, or you've put your life's work into some type of, you know, story, and then if that gets proven wrong, that will then make you look bad. So you don't want to be proven wrong. And there's a lot of this that happens in the archaeology like world. So there was this have you heard about Zahi Hawass, who he is the controller, he is the gatekeeper of everything that comes out of Egypt. And he did this very interesting interview that he did with Joe Rogan, which ended up damaging him more than anything, because everyone just got to see what type of person he was. That he controls every study. If you have an idea that you want to go study pyramids, or you want to dig or look for something, he controls it, and he tells you what to do. And he will also control the knowledge that comes out of Egypt. So say if you go to Egypt and you find some huge structure under the ground, under the pyramids, because, you know, recently we've seen about these scans where apparently, there's these huge cylinders under the Great Pyramids that go 80 meters down. And have you heard about this? Okay, we talk about that later. But if it goes against what he believes, he won't let it out. And if there is a discovery, he puts the discovery in his name. And this is wrong. This is like against science, but it's because he controls it.
What do you think his motivation is?
Nothing more than self-power. That just he wants to be the gatekeeper. And you should really just look him up again. Anyone that's listening, his name is Zahi Hawass, Hawass. And he and there are so many archaeologists, people that have come to light, who have said, they've discovered this, but it's been silenced by him.
I actually know a great example of this, where people.
But all we hear is just
people have a theory of the past, and they won't let anyone else even do the examinations to disprove their theory, and that is. So native populations in Anglophone countries. So I think in the U.S. it's really hard to do genetic studies of remains, because some Indian tribe will claim the remains, and then you can't, because part of extracting ancient DNA, as we can do now, as we have been doing for around 15 years, involves destroying part of the skeleton. So you usually the inner ear or something, you break it apart and you find some DNA. And usually they won't let you do that, because if a tribe is living in some area, they claim, you know, eternal residence in that area. And in Australia, it went so far as they had some skulls they thought might date back up to 60,000 years and be, you know, as much Denisovan, one of our sister branches along with the Neanderthals, as human. And, you know, rewrite human history, really. Called them, I think, the Mungo skulls. And last year they were destroyed. They were buried. They were broken apart, I think. No, actually, they were not broken apart. That was the whole point. They were buried secret places around in the Australian outback, on behest of some Aboriginal activist group, and probably they're gonna decay. Right, they're not in the right conditions to remain there forever, so they're just gonna.
Yeah, and you're going to lose that knowledge, just like what they're doing in was it Göbekli Tepe? Is that what it's called? That ancient thing.
Göbekli Tepe.
Yeah, Göbekli Tepe. Thank you. That they've all planted all these olive trees.
Okay.
So they've stopped They've stopped digging. They've put this law on that this company bought out the land, and you can't now dig there for 100 years. They put this law on.
Surely.
So everything is stopped. And they say the reason why they've stopped digging for 100 years is they want to leave this for future generations. And then the next thing they did is they've just planted loads of trees, loads of olive trees, and they planted these trees because then you can't dig them up because it's against that law. And that's all going to destroy. Anything that's underneath is going to be destroyed.
Surely that can't be right.
That is true.
No,
Björn.
this is one of the
This is true.
premier archaeological finds in.
And this is what I'm
history.
saying about how archaeology, that there is this power control. And I think your reaction is absolutely correct. It's the same as my reaction. But when you look at it yourself, and this is the whole point of this podcast today that I really want, especially you two, because you guys mean a lot to me, is if you go and look at it yourself, you have the computer there. Just quickly type in Göbekli Tepe, limit on, restrictions on any archaeological digs.
Yeah, sure, but how would the olive trees ruin anything?
Well, the trees, because of the roots are growing.
Because this is what they're doing in. So you know the first emperor of China.
Yes.
He's the one with the terracotta army, right?
Yeah.
And they only found that in 1971, I think.
Yeah.
So it's a really
all
recent
those
find.
soldiers, yeah.
All those soldiers, right? And they dug them up, and it's this big mountain. It's 100 meters tall, I think, and it's his grave. And inside there, they found all these soldiers, and they dug them up, and they lost their color, and they're all like, they're not in pristine condition anymore.
Yeah.
So what they've done is they've stopped digging because they want to wait until technology is such that they can artificially seal it off and make sure that the rest of because there's still tons of stuff in there. Amongst other things, they think that the emperor himself is seated on a throne in a mercury lake.
But they haven't planted any trees to ruin it.
There's tons of trees there.
No, but they haven't planted.
Sure, but
and this is what they've done in Göbekli Tepe. That they've planted thousands of trees all over these digging sites, and it's caused this uproar.
But presumably they wouldn't do that unless they were kind of confident the roots wouldn't grow down.
No, but they would. There's so many people that are really against this. You talk to if you look online and when you go home, if you search this, you will be astonished. And so many people are against it. But what can they do? The land has been bought by this private company. The same company, I think, who bought the land also has ties to some kind of European nation who are against a lot of this stuff coming out because it goes, again, against what they believe to be true.
I think this sounds like incompetence, and surely it's not corruption.
Yeah, I know. But I'm happy. This is good. This is a good reaction because this is what I want. I want you to say, "Oh, that's not believable. That's not true." And when you find it out yourselves, you'll be like, "Ah, shit."
It's hard to imagine what I could find out that would make me believe this would be true. Actually,
just Google right now on your laptop.
No, this is not the time for Googling.
Yeah, I know it's not time for Googling.
This is time for discussing.
But it will. That's exactly what they've done. They've stopped any digs for 100 years and they've planted loads of trees. And it's shocking. So when we talk about Egypt and these pyramids, anything that's discovered has to go through this one gatekeeper.
Okay, tell us about the Egypt thing.
Yeah. So recently there was, what was it, 6 months ago or something? Did you hear about this whole scan that this Italian company had done where they could get this satellite scanning, and they without actually going to Egypt, they could scan ground penetrating radar.
I think it's safe to say you're closer on the fringe archaeology news than we are.
Okay, so you haven't heard, this was big news.
I've not heard about this.
I am amazed. Okay, well, then here we go. So before I say, I will get my measurements wrong on this. I cannot remember. but it is extraordinary anyway. There's an Italian team that deal with this ground penetrating radar where they use a satellite to scan the Great Pyramids, and they're able to find out exactly what is underneath the pyramids, if there's any structures. And with their findings, and this obviously, I'm not saying that that this is what is down there, but what's interesting is that there is something down there. So they know there's definitely something down there, and that's not up for dispute. What it is another question. But from their scans, they found these huge pillars that went 800 feet underground on each. So I think each pyramid had 8 pillars, these huge concrete pillars that was going 800 meters underground. And then that was connected right after 800 meters underground. That was connected to a huge giant block. And they had put out this kind of artist's illustration of what they believed their facts were telling them. And this is what I mean. We don't know. But the fact that there was something down there, 800 meters, and then after 800 meters, there was this huge, like football-sized block that connected everything, and then underneath that was the water. And they've discovered this on each of the pyramids. So the question is what is it? I don't know, is my answer. But the fact that there is something there. And when lots of people who know this technology and know this radar, they'll look at it and they say, I can't say this for certain, that it is this, but I can tell you for certain that there is something. And they know the difference between, is it just human-made? Is it just natural rock? Is it just natural minerals? No, they can see that there is a specific type of structure. They can see that there's a specific type of minerals that are together that wouldn't be here if it was just normal dirt. They can tell this stuff. So that is really interesting. This kind of then leads into the idea of like, is the Great Pyramid, was it a power source? Like, was it a power station? Did it use some kind of the Earth's natural energy to then to kind of harness that, the Earth's natural frequencies up into the pyramid? Because you hear about like the King's Chamber and how it has these, it looks like there was like an explosion in there. I don't know if you've ever seen pictures inside the King's tomb, but there's these huge, again, these 500 ton blocks which are up in the pyramids, which have been quarried from a quarry that was 1,000 miles away, that they've somehow managed to drag all the way up to Egypt and then elevated high up in the sky and built it. We don't even have the technology to know how they did all that. That aside, in the King's Chamber, that and Tesla had this idea, and he was deemed to be a bit crazy, but when he saw the Great Pyramid, he originally thought that it was used as some kind of power energy building, not a tomb. There's never been anyone found. There's never been a mummy or anything found in the Great Pyramid. There's no carvings or inscriptions like in the pyramids the Egyptians built. Again, it kind of leads to this idea that did the Egyptians build the pyramid, or did they come across it? Did they find it? There's water erosion on the bottom of the pyramids, which when I said about how the Sahara used to be a lush place, green and vibrant, so there were people obviously living there over 10,000 years ago, which means these pyramids are a lot older than we're made to believe. I think we're told that the pyramids are supposed to be something like 6,000 years old. There was no water, 6,000 years old. You have to go past the point of the Younger Dryas, and the Younger Dryas was this kind of huge kind of where all these ice caps mounted, this huge earth catastrophe where these meteorites hit the earth, and it caused all this massive flooding where the ice caps melted. And you can see when you look at Africa that it's had this huge water damage where everything's been eroded away and pushed out. And then you could see that then, okay, maybe this is where the water erosion comes from. And if that's the case, then this pyramids would have been here longer than 10,000 years ago. So then, who did it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I have no idea how they date the pyramids, to be honest.
Well, we
I
can't
don't
as of
know.
yet.
I think they can. I think probably they just look at like cultural continuities. But maybe you can speak to the Augusta, to the idea of the pyramid being a power source.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, and we talked a bit about this last time, and there were some. I think the idea, if I remember right, was that it's some kind of a Helmholtz resonator or something.
Yes, yeah, resonator, yeah.
And
Because in the King's Chamber I was talking about, they have these holes that are specifically the same length as a wavelength for it to escape out. Like if you imagine it was some wireless energy that it could, yeah.
And I think as a resonator in itself, it would make a lot of sense. I think that is kind of easy technology if it's not used as a kind of a electrical resonator, but an acoustic one.
Yeah.
Because imagine the feeling of civilizational wealth if you hear this great pyramid sing or chime a tune of audio.
Yeah.
But and I suppose, and I remember I looked into this, and it kind of makes sense too. I think this power source, but it's kind of hard to me to. It's hard for me to really believe that they had that kind of. It would raise so many other.
It would
questions.
rewrite human history as we would know it. Yeah.
And it would kind of ask why is this the only kind of remnant of the kind of precision that they would need, and what would they use the electricity for? And but I suppose from the little I saw it, I suppose it at least could have been used to generate electrical shock.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
must have been a great display of to gather people in ancient time
Yeah.
around the civilization.
Yeah, I mean, it's just these I think parts of human history that I don't know if we will ever find out the truth behind it or not. But the fact that there's something there, and when I mentioned about this whole gatekeeper, this Hawass bloke, he who controls everything that goes in and out of Egypt. The only reason why these scans came out is because they were done by an Italian company, and they didn't have to go into Egypt to do it. They were able to use this ground penetrating radar. So he is against it.
Though, like if you, because the power thing.
Yeah.
If you want to use a pyramid to generate power, does it have to be that scale? How many watts are we talking?
No, I would have no idea. Too.
I would have no idea.
My suspicion is that they could have discovered some static electricity resonator thing that stored some electricity, and they just made it really big.
Yeah, so
that's kind of possible.
Maybe they built a little tomb somewhere that was pyramid shaped, and they realized there was by chance that they made some static electricity, and they scaled it up just to see what happened.
And then maybe, and then I suppose there's a lot of things that you could use even a bit of electricity for. If you could make fire.
Yeah, but that's easy to do anyways, though, especially in the desert, right?
Yeah, but have a continuous
So
fire in the city center.
I know it's not good for your viewers, but here's an image, and I'm sure your viewers can easily look up. This is what they've discovered on this ground.
So I can try to explain what I'm seeing here. It's well, it's a bit hard to. Well, it's in the background. It's a picture of the Great Pyramid.
Yeah, and this is the scans that they get, and this is the artist's illustration of what's under the pyramids.
Yeah. Okay. I'm now. This kind of triggers my critical thinking. I can show it to Bjørn too, and then I'll explain. So on the bottom, it seems to be some kind of scan heat map, probably of the depth. I guess where the red is the compactness of the material of the ground or something. And then on the top, there's this kind of a conceptual 3D model idea of what such a structure could be.
And it's not overlain on the
Yeah.
pyramid, so it's kind of hard to tell exactly what the scan is of.
Yeah, I mean, there is a paper where they've released a scientific paper that goes into everything that they've done, their results, and why they believe this is what it
But
is.
this is also sort of your area, August.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
So, but
well,
so my question is obviously, so these scans have happened. We can agree with that, yes. And they believe they found something. If you want to look into it in more detail, please go.
no, but
just
now
just look into
we've had the speculation, and now we need the skepsis, right?
and
This
now we
is-
need the skeptics. So,
so my,
otherwise, we're no better than Joe Rogan.
yeah,
my
true.
first thought here is that when there's no kind of labels on the axis, so there's a bit of guessing what it means.
Well, in that image, but there are. If we look in, if I pull up another image, you'll see.
But assuming this is kind of what I guess it to be, which is a kind of a vertical scan along one direction, and you get kind of the density of the ground under, then my first thought here is that you would expect the ground to be really compactified in a pillar under the pyramid, simply because it's a super heavy thing on top of the ground.
Yeah.
So it across millennia, it would kind of push the ground together to
Yeah.
form this kind of almost solid cylinder in itself, just from time and weight.
So you think there would be these very evenly based cylinder shock? They know this is not dirt.
Mm.
This isn't dirt.
Yeah. So that would be my follow up question.
Yeah.
Do you know what do they know about what it's made from?
Stone, like concrete.
Concrete.
Yes. So this has been something that has been put there, not naturally there. And this is the idea. If we want to go skeptic, how on earth did someone dig 800 meters into the ground and build these huge chambers? And then below that 800 meters, this huge block to connect everything above a natural waterway, miles under the ground, and then put that up onto these pyramids that have to be so aligned.
I think that the Occam's razor here is that they probably didn't.
Yeah, and
Right.
and that's
that-
what most people say. I mean, this made mainstream news. This was everywhere.
Sure, but like,
I would like to add one thing here, though, because it's kind of, when you first mentioned this earlier now, I was kind of thinking to myself, there's kind of, if it was us now, we were living back in the time, whenever that was, that people decided we're going to build a pyramid, then it would surely take a long time to start planning, finding that rock super far away, cutting it in good shapes, transporting it. You would have a lot of time during this planning to look at the place where the pyramid is going to be. And it would
Yeah.
kind of be strange if we didn't start digging. I would have wanted to dig something under it.
Yeah, but this
So something under it, but
Yeah.
this is a massive thing.
this is a massive thing. Yeah. And there's another place in Egypt which has been blocked off from the public for 100 years, which is called Abu Qaya, I think, CIA, where there's all these drill marks. Have you seen this? Where there are these holes
no.
where they start
No.
talking about. So okay,
Where is
so a
where is
lot of
it?
this stuff in pyramids have been they're made of granite. And if you don't know much about granite, but granite is a very, very hard stone to work with. So in your kitchen, for example, most people want to work with marble rather than granite. Because granite, because of the density of the stone, it's so hard to cut that, say, if you don't cut it correctly, you can get like a huge chunk just chop off randomly. Yes, it's very difficult to cut or saw in a straight line. When so many of these stones that have been made in the pyramids are made of granite.
I mean, this is hard. This is
Um,
a hard sell for us here in Oslo, where our most famous landmark is a whole park full of flowing granites made like human sculptures.
Yes, yeah. I think the only way that you can drill granite is like through like a diamond drill.
Mm.
Yes.
Okay.
And what they've found, there's these areas of Egypt, I think it's called Abu Qaya, where there are loads of these drill holes that look like, and these are thousands and thousands of years old. And I can pull up a picture of that if you would like to see it. But loads of different
Very
width-
bad podcasting.
Yeah, I know it's bad podcasting, but it's to prove where they found basically loads of different drill holes with different diameters that have been drilling into granite. And again, you think, how they must, what type of machinery did this? Something else in Egypt is really interesting, which will probably come out in a few years, hopefully, is, have you heard of the labyrinth that's been discovered? So this is quite new. So, okay, here we go.
Is there a Minotaur?
Yeah. There's something even better. So there's a place in Egypt called the Labyrinth, which has been known, and it's apparently it's underground, and it's this huge, like 2 or 3 football pitches wide pillars. So the surface area is about 2 or 3 football pitches wide, and throughout all of this, there's like a kind of loads of these pillars, yes, that are underground, and it's kind of like a shopping mall, if you want to imagine. That they have different levels to it, yes, upper level, middle, and lower level. And in the lower level, from using this ground penetrating radar, they've found that there's a metallic tic-tac shape metal object in the center of this labyrinth. And the question is, what is this metal?
Is it as big as a Tic Tac as well, or is it bigger?
No, it's bigger than Tic Tac. I say Tic Tac because that's what this UFO, that if we want to start talking about UFOs, Tic Tac shape. Okay. So this Tic Tac is about the shape of your house, pure metal, and they can't tell you what metal it is. They can just tell you from the radar that this isn't stone, this is metal, and it is in a perfect kind of Tic Tac shape. Okay. Yes, like a pill. Round and the edges, and this is metal.
So before we slide away into UFO,
so the question is again, they haven't even dug up the labyrinth yet. Okay, there's been stories in history about the labyrinth existing and it being this incredible place, and they apparently putting the Great Pyramids themselves to shame. But when they start able to excavate that, they'll obviously dig down and try to find what this Tic Tac is.
So there's two sort of sometimes overlapping theories on all of these archaeological. So we encourage our listeners to do their own research on this, but to the extent that you convinced us that there are surely strange things going on in the world of archaeology, then there's I think the Graham Hancock version is that civilization has been through rises and falls before. Yes. There's been going back, tens of millennia. Yeah. There's been powerful civilizations, world-spanning civilizations, and then on the other side of the spectrum, or I guess like looking forward, is the UFO explanation. Like this is all connected to how extraterrestrials have been in contact with Earth throughout history, right? And I think we should dwell on the former just to limit ourselves.
Okay, how freaky are we going to be getting here? Like how dark, deep do you want me to go? You wanting the full ride, August, or you just want? Okay, I'll tease you.
No UFOs, no UFOs. That's the only rule.
You don't want me to talk about UFOs?
No, let's just stick with the ancient civilizations.
Okay, because in like the whole. Recently there was this like U.S. Congress hearing.
I think the UFOs is a whole different episode. I think otherwise we'll be staying here all night.
All right, so we're going to stay here then with the ancients. Yes, so from what Graham Hancock, I suppose, echoing your thoughts, is saying is that he believes that there was an ancient civilization that was intelligent and had certain technology. Whether it be above ours or different to ours is another question. But how then during the Younger Dryas, this mass extinction that happened 10 to 12,000 years ago, that civilization got wiped out and there were a few survivors from these ancient civilizations.
So the Younger Dryas is a period of relative cold after the Ice Age, right? So there's the Ice Age that ends around 15,000 years ago.
It was flooding, so yes.
And then there's a warmer period, and then there's like a whiplash in the Younger Dryas.
So the Younger Dryas was a meteorite that hit the Earth that caused all the ice caps and this violent for over about 2 weeks, where volcanoes and everything erupted and the ice caps melted, and it was this horrific period. I mean, they talk about how in America, where the Grand Canyon, that probably came from the Younger Dryas.
So in America, I know this because I lived nearby, as do many people, because it was a huge lake. There was a huge lake called Lake Aziz.
Mm-hmm.
That was a glacial lake. It was probably the biggest lake in the world, I think.
Yeah.
And they think it burst, like you said. I don't know if it's during the Younger Dryas or when it was, but at some point it burst and flooded. So this was, I guess, it sort of started in the Dakotas and went all the way up into far into Canada.
Yeah. I know which lake you're talking about. Yeah. So that's supposed to be when the Younger Dryas happened. That then this lake burst, and I said it was 2 weeks of pure violence, huge amount of energy. When you look at something like the Grand Canyon, and I think before people would say that it came from like these slow ice caps, kind of building its way through the earth. That's not how That's not how stone and stuff would look if you had this slow erosion. If you had this huge mass of power of this water that was, carrying these huge rocks and just literally hitting everything, ripping everything in sight, you'd be left with something like you see at the Grand Canyon, where there are these rocks with big holes in the middle, and just it would look how it would look. So the Younger Dryas happened about 12,000 years ago, and it was supposed to be this meteorite hit that wiped out many things. And so when we talk about ancient civilization, when you talk about, say, Atlantis, and I'll talk about that for a little bit, but these civilizations in the Amazon and wherever, in Egypt, if there was this Younger Dryas for 2 weeks where it just got rid of everything, then you'd have the few survivors from these civilizations. And this is what Graham Hancock goes to in his documentary, where then these few survivors would then travel out and go to places like South America and Asia to help people try to rebuild their civilization again by passing them certain things that they would know.
Right, because in this framework, these pre-Younger Dryas civilizations, so I guess they're between the Ice Age and the Younger Dryas, so that's just a couple of thousand years.
Yeah.
They would have the technology to sail around the world. Why?
Yeah.
Why did it take so long to rediscover it then?
Well, this is another thing. So here, there's this. There's an old map. The oldest world map that we have is by, I think it's called the Perry Reese map, and this August was a map that wasn't drawn by Perry Reese, but was based on older maps from apparently sources that they had from like the Library of Alexander and stuff like this. Yes, so older maps. And in this old map, and it was drawn on in the 15th century. The Perry Reese map, and in this map it shows Antarctica, but Antarctica wasn't discovered until the early 18th century. No, the late 18th century.
I've seen this map, and I think it's a bit unclear if it's Antarctica.
But what's interesting...
No, there's definitely a southern continent in there.
But what's interesting is when you go back to the Younger Dryas, before the Younger Dryas happened, Antarctica looked very different to how it does now. So Antarctica was actually connected to South America. It was this long kind of continent that connected... through South America, where Argentina and the tip is there. That was all connected through. And it also shows an island, Bimini. And last time we had this podcast, we spoke about Bimini Road. I said these stones I showed you underwater. That was apparently, this old Bimini Road, which is around in the Caribbean, where now Bimini is half the size of what it used to be. But in the map, Bimini was actually a big island, and in this Perry Reese map, he's drawn this big road.
People used to hypothesize Australia, like way before Europeans knew or discovered the continent of Australia. There was like a widespread belief, I think, that there should be a continent called Australia just because of symmetry. There should
Yeah.
be a big continent on the other side of the globe. So when they found it, they were like, yeah, that makes sense. That's
Yeah.
where it is.
Yeah. Like I agree with you. Like so, with the whole Perry Reese map, was interested is when he drew the map. He said this map is drawn from older sources that I have. Sorry, not that he has, but he's been able to get hold of. That's come from the Palace of Alexandria.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm throwing.
Now,
I'm
what's
throwing
interesting? So when you talk
gasoline on
about
your
this,
fire.
so what's interesting when you said about the ancient civilization? Okay, when the Younger Dryas happened, maybe there was already a civilization that was able to travel the seas and draw maps of the world. And like when Columbus arrived in America, the Indians already knew of the white man. And there's a whole thing about, is it the Vikings that came up there? Yes, it could have been. Or is it even before that? Is it way even before that? I don't know the answer. I'm just saying it's interesting. But what's interesting in the Perry Reese map, his map is the only one that shows Antarctica. And it's even called Antarctica in his map. But maps that drew later don't show Antarctica at all. And it's not until we discovered Antarctica that then they drew it.
Have you heard of Friesland?
Friesland?
Yeah. So in maps drawn, I think it's like between 1600 and end of the 18th century of Europe. People tended to draw in a big island about the size of Iceland or bigger, called Friesland. That was located west of the Faroe Islands or south of Iceland, and that everyone knew was there. It was Friesland. And of course, it turned out it wasn't at all. It was just this fantasy that someone at some point drew in, and then it just became common knowledge.
Yeah, it's like Easter Island that's far out there with these massive heads and everything. That was apparently supposed to be a place where before the Younger Dryas that there were lots of islands. So you could imagine that someone in South America could actually safely get to Easter Island.
And this is Thor Heyerdahl, of course.
Yeah. Sorry, I've got this cough. But so that's again, it interests me. I'm not saying that it's true or not, but what I am saying is I think that there's much about our human history that we've been told and we've been taught in schools that I don't necessarily believe to be accurate. And I think there will come a time that we will piece these answers together, because I think it's important in order for us to progress and move forward as a civilization to the future. It's important we kind of also know where we've come from, because who's to say that, let's say that the Younger Dryas happens again, let's say there's a meteor strike tomorrow and it wipes out and only 1% of the Earth's population survive, and that 1% is then left to rebuild and raise, and they would talk about a time that, we used to walk around with these little metal devices and we could communicate with each other and do this, but they didn't have.
But the thing is, if we were buried alive today, like if everyone died, it would take hundreds of thousands of years before the last signs of our civilizations were gone. Millions, possibly, right?
No.
Of course it would.
Well, it depends what's covering it up.
New York City, what do you think is going to happen there?
Yeah, well, all the buildings would get knocked down and get washed out into the ocean.
Sure, but maybe not washed out. I mean, they would stay there.
They
probably,
could,
right?
and they could get covered up. Just like the Sahara used to be a desert, and it's there's dinosaurs have lived millions and millions of years, and they're all underground.
Yeah, we know they're there.
Yeah,
they've left tons of like even just by existing, they've left so much.
And this is what we're doing now. We're discovering things now, whether it be underwater or underground.
Possibly, but everything is just so. There's a square rock underwater in the Pacific somewhere.
Yeah.
This must be an ancient civilization, or like there's this Italian company doing satellite scans in the Sahara Desert and claiming that the pyramids are 800 meters deep.
Yeah,
and it's never there's a skyscraper in Morocco that's 20,000 years old. Like you would expect a civilization of this scale, you would expect there to be more, right?
I agree. There will be a lot of infrastructure and small technology and devices that will be strikingly advanced, that will be found in the mud or in the ground or
Yeah, a lot of this
Okay.
stuff could probably be under the ocean, which is where we haven't been. So, like at the moment,
All of it would have to be under the
because you
ocean.
imagine like the best places to live back then would be some kind of coastal area, and if with the Earth changing how it is, those coastal areas will now be underwater.
For 150 years, people have been dredging out tar pits everywhere because you'll find old mammoths and stuff pretty well preserved. It's hard to believe that at some point someone didn't lose their ancient cell phone into one of them.
Yeah, I mean, so I know you don't want to talk about aliens, and we won't. But there's the other thing about not every civilization starts the same way. Meaning that, say, if you look at another planet, we're not all going to start with a steam engine and then a combustion engine, and then work our way from horse and carriage to what we know as a jet engine. We don't all follow this as what we've gone through. We don't follow that same procedure. Maybe that in the ancient times they had a knowledge about something that we've lost. Where
This is making the theory much more complicated, though. You have to posit a completely different technology tree, science tree.
There's a documentary that's going to come out a bit on this guy who's done this underwater excavation just off the coast of Spain that has found these huge buildings and walls and stuff like that. So that will be interesting when it comes out. So I think it's called Atlantica, his documentary. I don't think he believes it's Atlantis, but it's just the idea that he's found this giant city underwater with these huge stones again. That will come out in a bit, so that's obviously interesting. As I said, I think there's lots to be found in the ocean. I think I showed you last time some pictures of unique things. And I agree with you, like just because we find a square rock and this huge thing that then we have to jump to the conclusion. I agree with you completely that no, that shouldn't be enough. But I don't think it should stop us asking the questions. So for me, it's important that whoever the scientists are, I want them to be open-minded. I want them to ask questions. I don't like the idea of this stubbornness that we have as a human race where, oh, we should stop asking questions. That's impossible. I'm going to ignore that. No. It's because when it comes to ancient civilizations and UFOs and other subjects, it has this taboo factor with it. It has this, oh, you talk about that, you're crazy. Because it's so out of the realms of possibility, and that's fine. That's what I find entertaining. My career's not not on the line because I believe in some crazy stuff. But what I do want is I want people to at least try to be open-minded about the possibility. So when you look at the pyramids and we have no idea how they were built, you have that there right in front of your eyes and you think, okay, clearly whoever built these, however old they may be, whether it be 6,000 years ago or 12,000 years ago or even older, they must have had some kind of technology to lift these stones, to drill these stones, to quarry them 1,000 miles away and bring them here that we do not have anymore.
I have the opposite critique almost, where I'm open-minded to this. I think it's terribly exciting. I think there is a possibility, albeit slight, that we're going to find out that human civilization is, much older than we thought. By definition, the oldest archaeological find we have of something is not going to be the oldest, or it's very unlikely to be the oldest example of a thing in the world.
Yeah.
There might be much older stuff. But I think a lot of this is driven by wishful thinking. To be honest, it's so exciting. It's so terribly exciting to think that there might have been technologically advanced civilizations that before our own, and that we are just discovering the inklings of now and then, buried beneath the earth. And when you tell me about these Italian companies and Graham Hancock and stuff, and I know the archaeological orthodoxy is against them. And you might be right. Maybe it's stubbornness on the orthodoxy side. That wouldn't be the first time it's happened in science, I think.
Yeah.
But more likely, in my opinion, it's the people who are doing these satellite scans of the pyramids. They already have a hypothesis, right? They already know that we're going to discover some terrible secrets, and then of course they do, because they probably believe it themselves. It's not like they're lying; they're just interpreting their data in a way that, like you said, like they have a theory they want to defend, right? Like the Egyptian guy.
Yes, yeah.
Mossad,
yeah. So I think this is why it's important that we are all just open and able to, like so many people today were worried about being criticized, and I think that just be open with your ideas and have them, I think it's against science and progression that we're not able all to work together. And what I see in archaeology and in some other areas of science, that it becomes much more stagnant. Like there are different individual people in their different in their fields, and rather than collaborating, everyone's more concerned about being right rather than trying to find the truth. Does that make sense?
I would like to,
and that's a worry. That's a concern for me. Like I don't care about. I just want to know what the truth is, and let's all work together and try to think, bias aside, ideas aside, egos aside. Let's try to find out what these are.
I think there's this split of two different mindsets, kind of, because for me, I think it's incredible. I agree that it's really important to be open-minded and it's a nice process to think about this and these kind of a bit crazy theories that are really, it would be astonishing if these things are true, especially the alien idea. And it's really joyful to think about it, but I also at the same time don't think it is the job of science to entertain these massive kind of far out there ideas. I think kind of it is much more important in science to be right than because I think that's the way you build your way to the truth. You do one small boring step at a time.
Yeah.
Where you just make a scan and you say what it's made of, and then at some point it might be, and I think it's almost certain that we will, as time progresses, we will know more and more of just how advanced ancient civilizations were.
Yeah.
And it's likely that they will be much more advanced than what we think now, just from Björn's argument that that's how science works, especially archaeology. That the more you know, the more you know. Because it's this kind of incremental certainty or boring statements that are just right.
Yeah.
But I think where I agree with Alex is, or at least, let me not put words into your mouth, but the way I'm sympathetic to your view is that I think we as, podcasters or as friends or around the table or just people trying to understand what's happened in the world, surely we can be more curious and as you say, open-minded than is demanded of a rigorous science, without accusing the scientists themselves, who are only working within a framework known to establish truth, or at least trying as hard as they can, albeit however limited, of being overly stubborn. But I think we can entertain these ideas, and we should, and everyone should.
And it's nice to do.
It's nice to do. I agree. It's nice to think, what if there were, crazy advanced technology in the world?
Yeah.
20,000 years ago, way into the Ice Age. What if people sail around the Earth in the Younger Dryas?
And it might even be real and true.
It's not certainly not impossible. But if I were to bet,
yeah, of
probably
course,
wouldn't.
Yeah, of course. And like everything I'm saying again, I only know just from someone that I do try to watch a lot of read and watch and learn as much as I can about these things. Yeah, because ideally, at the end of the day, it is entertaining for me. It's an entertaining thought. Sometimes the difficult side can be like if someone wants to have a conversation about ancient civilizations or about UFOs or whatever, and they're not even willing to look into certain things, they're not even willing to take the time to think, then I'm kind of wasting my time, because it doesn't matter what I say to you. I could even bring an alien in right now and say, oh look, here you go, here's proof of living life. But if you're just not in that frame of mind, no, it's a person in a suit, no, you're not even willing to give it the time of the day, it's not my job to change your mind. It's like when we go in some family dinner and I'm talking to Lisa's mum or Lisa's grandparents, they're of an age where it doesn't entertain them. Like
I have to admit,
they don't want to get
if you
involved
brought
in
an alien into my house at this very moment,
yeah,
I would. My first instinct would not be to think, "Wow, he sure was right about the alien thing." I think there was some shenanigan going on.
Yeah, you think, exactly. You think, oh, there's a con, or my senses can be fooled, and of course, yeah. I think it's going to take the aliens landing on the White House lawn for most people to suddenly turn their heads and take notice. And that's okay. But when people do want to talk about it, I always think that it's important to be informed. That's all. And irrelevant of what your opinion is, whether you're against it or for it, is if you're informed on both sides, then you can come to a decision that's yours. If you're ill-informed, whatever decision you make, whether you agree or disagree, is still a bad decision. And this can stretch out into politics. It can stretch out into anything. The most important thing is to try to be informed. So when it comes to this specific topic that I enjoy, I try to inform myself as much as I can, that then I'm able to still be kind of skeptical, but still be open-minded and think, oh, how is this even possible in the history that I learned in school? This is not, which must mean either the data is wrong or the history that we've been taught is wrong. And just that.
And I think that's a good place to end, right?
Yeah.
We've been talking for a while, and we've been it's sure been a tour de force.
Yeah. Maybe the next one we can dive into the whole UFO topic.
Next one is UFOs. Where also I think you've pushed me in the direction of belief. I think I've updated from sub 1% chance of extraterrestrial activity on Earth to maybe above 1%.
Yeah. Well, I can show you some video footage.
I've checked this out myself, and it's not terribly convincing on its own, but there sure is a lot.
There's a lot, yeah.
So and from some fairly convincing witnesses. So yeah, who knows what's going on?
Yeah.
Anyways, that's for next Alex special.
Yeah, the next episode. Yeah. Well, thank you for having me.
This has been our first our first official Alex special on the Future Pod with
Björn
and August and
Alex.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank
so,
you for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Goodbye.